Welcome to Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome aboard to Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women. The subject of this particular podcast is going to be how to actually find good rentals, okay? The last one was on how do we find good flips. So I will tell you this one is my favorite subject because between flipping, buying rentals, and wholesaling, the three major categories of real estate investing, the only one that allows you to build long-term equity and cash flow is buying and holding rental properties. I particularly like multi-units, and by the time we're done with this podcast, you'll know why. Okay, so now before we get into all that, just a brief recap here. You know what this is for professionals, people who, you know, you're teachers, you're engineer, you own your own business, you own your own practice. If you're a chiropractor or a dentist or an accountant, maybe you're a fireman and policeman, or you're a pilot, or you're in the military. All those groups, each one of you make really good investors. I can tell you, I've been doing this for 33 years as an investor, and 17 of those years also as a broker, real estate broker, and bar none, you are my best investors, okay? So that's who this was for. I want to emphasize that we're not talking about the, no money down owner financing, what we call smoke and mirrors techniques. They all do work. I'm not going to tell you they don't work. The fact is, though, if you've done them, you recognize they don't work very well, and it will take you forever to build up enough substantial wealth and income to be able to retire using those strategies. And I can tell you, if you're like me, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner. I was an IT person for years, decades. And, I don't want to be stuck at a computer sitting in a chair the rest of my life, okay? So I did something about it. And I can tell you, some of my closest friends are chiropractors and dentists, and they don't want to be stuck behind the chair, and neither do you. So the reality is in the game of business, he who has the gold makes the rules. And in this case, we like to use cash. For you right now, your jaws dropping, saying, well, Gary, I don't have cash, or how do I get cash? We're going to go over all of these strategies and techniques over the next several podcasts. Okay, so the point is, though, is as soon as I can get you on a cash basis, even for just a down payment, that's going to help you get better prices on your properties, better rates and terms on your loans, okay, which allow you to have better equity positions and better cash flow positions, because that's what this is about, equity and cash flow, okay? And the reality is you already have a great asset you can use and leverage, which is your business. If you own a business, you can get a small business loan to get started. More about that later. But, and I will tell you, I'll just give you an example of one of my very first investments, okay? So the very first rental, actually was two rentals I bought, two fourplexes side by side. And if you can imagine this, I got them both for $180,000, long time ago. Put down 20% cash. I had it saved up over the years and got a really good mortgage on both of those properties, two separate mortgages. Great terms, great rates, and allowed me to cash flow from day one. Over time, those properties became more valuable, okay? And I was able to refinance and do what's called a blanket mortgage across those properties, leveraging the equity. They gave me the cash I needed to buy more properties, okay? Now, I did a lot more than that. I just want to give you that one example. My very first property, by the way, was actually a 4-bedroom ranch home in Virginia Beach, Virginia. It had two bathrooms, and my college roommate and I bought it together. His name was Socrates. His father was a Greek immigrant. His mother was also Greek. Her parents were immigrants, and they married and produced Socrates, one of my best friends and college buddies. And we bought our first house together. In fact, we did do some creative purchasing because that was back in the mid 80s when interest rates were through the roof. And the year, that was January 86. That was the year that the Congress came out with the new tax plan that put a real hurting on a lot of small business owners like doctors, for example, but created opportunities for young guys like us. But the reality is that one was different. We actually assumed the owner's first mortgage. It was a VA mortgage, and we can still do that today, by the way, okay? You can also assume many variable rate mortgages too. So don't let anybody ever tell you you can't assume mortgages anymore. That's not true, right? So in any case, he had a second mortgage, and we took our own second mortgage out to pay off his second mortgage. And there was a third mortgage for the owner's remaining equity in the property. He was owner financing on the remaining dollars equity he had in the property. So we really had three loans on the property. We still cash flowed. By the time it was all said and done, at the end of every month, we rented out the other two rooms to other roommates, and their rent covered all of our debt service except for about $50. I mean, we literally lived for about $50 a month. In any case, a couple of years later, I got married, and Socrates bought me out, bought my share, my half. The legal way it worked is the party of Socrates and me, Gary, sold the property through a quick claim deed to the party of Socrates. Okay. I had $8,000 into the property, and I had $3,000 into the property, and I got $8,000 out as a result of that deal. So here's what I want to do. I want to show you guys what we learned in that process of the first property and many others after that, on how do you actually identify the right properties in the right areas. So let's just get it right to it. Okay. First things first, you've heard me mention a tool called Melissa Data. Melissa Data is a marketing program developed by the U.S. Postal Service, and you can see in it by zip code. It's keyed by zip code. You key in the zip code. For every zip code, you can see all of the carrier routes, the routes that the postman takes with the mail. Okay, so that's all in there. And for every carrier route, you can see how many businesses are in the area in the carrier route, how many apartments, how many people live there, what they make, the average salary, and the average property value. Really important. So what I do when I'm looking for rentals is I look for carrier routes that have a lot of apartments, and here's why. If you think about real estate in broad terms, would you agree that wherever you have more apartments, you're likely to have more rentals? Well, of course, the answer is yes. Now, I'm not saying every apartment is a rental. Some of them are owner-occupied condos. But wherever you have a concentration of apartments, you will likely have more rentals. They could include, single-family homes in the area, could include duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, 10-unit buildings, 20-unit buildings, 50-unit buildings, 100-unit buildings. They're all in there. Okay. The point is I'm going to focus initially on those areas. All right. Now, that's part one. Part two is this. There's another great tool. We actually mentioned this on the last podcast also, is your local planning commission. Your municipality that you live in will likely have one. But more importantly, your county will have what's called a county planning commission. This is what every municipality has one, every county has one, and they determine, planning commission is what's going to happen with the plans for the county. How are they going to utilize our tax dollars to build new parks, bridges, schools, roads, things like that, maybe even airports. And all that stuff's important. But what we really like about these websites is they provide lots of demographics and social graphics, lots of housing data for the area, all public information, usually gathered from your census and also your tax assessors database. Okay. So here's how I use this. I'm going to give you a ratio, and I want you to please remember or write this down, which is this. When you're buying rentals, you want to be in an area that's between 1/3 and 2/3 tenant occupied. So let me pause and repeat that. When you're looking for rentals that get the right properties in the right areas, it turns out there is a really good, we call it the sweet spot ratio. And again, it's between, the area is going to be between 1/3 tenant occupied and 2/3 tenant occupied. That middle third is what we're looking at. Now, let's just kind of turn this around and see why is that. So if you think about it, if we're looking at an area that's less than 1/3 tenant occupied, that means it's greater than 2/3 owner occupied. Well, that might be a good area for flipping homes. Okay. And as you might imagine, it will be very difficult to make a lot of money buying rentals in those areas because they generally have strong home ownership, which means property values are higher. And as a rule of thumb, as home prices increase based on area, the rents for those areas do not increase at the same pace as home values. So in other words, what I'm getting at is there's a certain point beyond which it doesn't make sense to invest the dollars for the cash flow you get. The cost basis, in other words, the cash flow from the rents does not justify the cost basis. So that's what you get when you're trying to buy like in an A area. There's A, B, and C areas. And if you buy in an A area, you're generally going to be have lower, tighter cash flow, if any at all. But you will have greater appreciation on the values. That's no doubt about that. So in any case, now let's look at the other end of that. What if it's greater than 2/3 tenant occupied? Well, the reality is let's imagine you're in a neighborhood where 80% of the units are being rented. Well, what might that area look like? That's correct. It could be perhaps not so good of an area. It could be a lower C area. All right. And we like to invest in the B minus and C plus areas when it comes to rentals. Okay. Maybe some C's and throw it in there too. But not C minus, not anything below that. We don't deal with the war zones. Okay. We don't do the smoke and mirror techniques that always usually end up having you in the lower end areas. We don't want to do that. You might think you're going to make more cash flow, but I promise you won't. It may look good on paper, right? The cash flow versus cost basis may look good in those low end areas. The challenge is what we call the cap rate doesn't only reflect reward, it reflects risk. So a lot of investors ignore the risk and go for the big cap rates, only to find out that the other part of the coin is this. You'll have to work way harder, much harder, to collect those rents and keep the rents increased and keep the properties occupied with good tenants. It's just going to be a lot of hard work, a lot of headaches. So in any case, that's the main thing there is the ratio, okay, between 1/3 and 2/3. Now, what's interesting is your planning commission websites often give you those ratios by neighborhood. Kind of interesting how that works, okay? So that's big lesson number one for this podcast, guys. Hey, while you're listening, just a quick note that we do have the venue secured for our next 3-day event. That is in August 23rd, 24th, 25th. That's a Friday, Saturday, and half a Sunday up in Boston, Massachusetts. Awesome time of year to be there. It's going to be at the Hyatt Regency in Cambridge. That's 575 Memorial Drive, Cambridge, 02157. Now, we're going to put this in the show notes. So those of you who would like to register, just look in the show notes for the registration link, and you can go ahead and register. In any case, I look forward to seeing you there. Come get some lobster. Come see a Sox game. It's the weekend before Memorial Day, so why don't you make a trip of it and go out to the Cape Cod, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard. Man, go up to Old Orchard Beach, Maine. But the main thing is come to learn and earn and network with everyone else in the organization here. We're only doing this twice this year, as far as we know. So here's your opportunity. Come on aboard, ramp up your game, get in the game if you're not in the game yet. But more importantly, have some fun. Learn how to leverage what you're already doing to generate additional streams of income, particularly when it comes to your practice and your own investing in real estate. Okay, back to the show. Take care. The next thing is this. So we want to use public data further to identify specific properties in the specific areas we just identified. And one really good way to do that is your tax assessor's database. Okay, every property in your county has a property file associated with it in your tax assessor's database. In most of the 50 states, it's at the county level. Same thing in Canada. There's a few states where it's at the municipal level, and that would be states like New Jersey, New York. They're just different that way. But for the most part, whether it's county level or municipal level, in order to collect property taxes, every taxing authority has what's called a tax assessor to determine what your property should be taxed at. So in any case, all that data is now public. It's been public for over 15 years due to the Freedom of Information Act, which means you and I, regular consumers, can get access to that data, usually for free. Okay, so what that means is you can go to your tax assessor database, and we already know the sweet spots to look for the rentals. Now what we got to do is find the rentals in those areas. And I'm going to give you a technique here that doesn't involve the multi-list system that you have in your area. Every realtor you ever work with will inevitably want to use the multi-list system. But maybe half at best of all the real estate deals for investing are on there. The other half, we got to use these techniques, okay? The good half. So here's what we do. We go in there and we identify by class or type what we're looking for. So if you're looking for a 4-unit building, you can search generally for 4-unit buildings, in particular zip codes, even if you want. Okay. And by the way, some online search mechanisms inside these tax assessors databases are very good. Some are not that good. Some are more robust. Some just have very limited search capability. In those situations, you can actually purchase the data from the county. You can purchase the property files, usually in a disk. They'll send you a disk, or in some cases, you'll get a download. You can download the file on your computer, and then you can search on almost any field you could ever imagine. Class, type, size, zip code, year built, the whole 9 yards, when you actually own the data, which you can do for usually about $50. Okay, now back to what I was describing. So what I do is I go in there, and if I know I'm looking for a 4-unit building, I identify all the properties in the area that have 4 units. I'm not going to worry about the duplexes or the triplexes or those that have 5 or more units. I'm just looking at 4-unit buildings right now, and that's what I'm going to focus on in this example. Now, so we identify all the properties. The reality is you and I can communicate with all of those owners directly. We can send them letters. We could even use a tool online to find their phone numbers associated with them. I don't do that, by the way. I prefer to use a letter technique. But what we do is we identify all the properties that meet our criteria. In this example, 4 units in the building. Now, we don't want to send a letter. We don't want to approach every owner of every fourplex. I mean, we could, but the reality is most of them are not going to want to sell, okay? And you're just basically taking up a lot of valuable time, which is your most important resource, your own time. So what we do is we go back over to the public records and go into the court records at the prothonotores level. Typically, this is the county level, and this is the level where a lot of civil suits reside. So let's just say you have a landlord-tenant action, an eviction going on, usually it starts at the magistrate's level. However, if it gets appealed, which they often do, it goes to the court of common pleas level. That's the county level. That data is housed online for you and I to search and find out which landlords are evicting tenants. And you can you can key in a property address to see how many records are out there, how many filings have been filed using that address. And that could tell you something about the property, like perhaps it's being mismanaged. Okay. The reason this is important is those are the ones we target. Okay. You can look for all kinds of public records, court records on landlord-tenant cases, divorce, probate, foreclosure, bankruptcy, the list goes on. So you can look at all those different types of records and see if there's anything, here's what I do. I'm not going to be just looking at one 4-unit building. I'm going to look at several 4-unit buildings. So what I'll do is I'll get the zip codes for the areas I'm interested. Remember how we do that? Okay. Melissa data, remember, is driven by zip code. So we identify the good areas by zip code. And remember, the second step was to drill down further using the Planning Commission website. So in any case, the point is we know the zip codes of the areas we want to be in, right? So what we do is when we're going through the public records, looking for the landlord-tenant cases as an example, we're looking for landlord-tenant cases where the zip code matches the areas we want to buy in. Going back to Melissa data. You guys follow me on that? Okay, wonderful. So now we've identified specific owners of specific properties that we know are more likely to want to sell because they've got a whole string of evictions going on and they're probably getting worn out. Okay. And we like those problems because we can solve them. We call it the new sheriffs in town. We move in, say, with all due respect, the new sheriffs in town, here's our rules for you, the tenant. And if you meet the criteria, that's great. You can stay. If not, we wish you well. Basically, we come in and we manage a property to profit. But in any case, I wanted to share that with you because that's one of our big strategies we use to go under the radar screen, not have to compete with everybody else in town, including all the realtors, okay? So it's an awesome technique. There's more to it. I mean, I'll give you a few more tips here. I went over the letter in the last podcast, so that same letter would work here, for example. So the podcast on finding good flips, that the letter section will work here also. You obviously have to change the type of property that's in the letter. But in any case, so I want to give you a few more tips here. One of them is this. Every area typically has what's called an apartment association, sort of like the Realtors Association, for example. Every state has one, in every county, typically they're at the county level. With property management, it could be a city level thing, could be county level, but you want to Google property management in your area. And the reason is you want to go to one of their dinners. Usually they'll have an annual conference, an annual dinner with awards and things like that, recognitions. You can go there and you can mingle with property managers who manage thousands of units, by the way. But more importantly, you can meet owners of some of those big buildings, which means you now have a networking opportunity here to find owners of properties who may want to sell. And I can tell you, some of my best deals came from elderly gentlemen who had portfolios built up over the years, and they were in their 70s, were looking to retire. So think on that for just a second. What I'm getting at is direct contact, relationship building. At the end of the day, no matter what we can do marketing wise, guys, is the name of the game. Okay, having that direct contact, that direct exposure will get you far further than any marketing campaign anybody can do. We still do a lot of marketing. Don't get me wrong there, but I suggest join your AA, your local apartment association. The other one you could join is your local bankers association, ABA, American Bankers Association. Okay, they have local chapters. I joined mine, and I was able to meet people in the banking industry there, but also other people in support industries that were in support of banking, like brokers and property managers, insurance people, homeowners insurance, attorneys. They were all there. All right. So you get to network with the right people who, through one way or another may help you achieve your goals of owning passive income producing assets. Okay. Now, real quick, we're going to be wrapping this one up here, but I just want to go over one more thing here. There's essentially two basic strategies to buy rentals. One of them is you buy a turnkey property. It's in good shape. It's marketable. In other words, the condition it's in now is a condition it needs to be in to sell, right? At an arm's length transaction, and also the units to be able to be rented at current market rental rates. Okay, that's turnkey. You buy the property. Maybe it's already occupied. Even you don't have to put anybody in there. The rents come into you starting day one. Okay, that's what I like to do. I don't want to get into a lot of hard work and headaches and blah 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 from the other technique, which is the buy, remodel, refi approach. In other words, you buy a dog with fleas, you clean it up, fix it up, and get a new brand new loan on it. You can do that, by the way, but essentially you keep it. Okay, you keep the property to rent long term. So basic strategy A, turnkey, nothing has to be done to the property. Basic strategy B, you might have to take a property, and as the tenants' leases come due, don't renew them so you can go in and remodel the units. Then you can increase the rents on those units, as well as fix up the exterior, the common areas, all that. So the property itself is not just more valuable because it's bringing in more rent. It's more valuable because you've improved it physically, right? So and then what you can do is either just keep it the way it is. You've already purchased it. It's now remodeled. Your rents are higher. Just keep renting it. However, if you want to pull back some of your equity, if you want to get some equity out, remember the property's worth more money now. So what you can do is go in there and refinance the property, or take out what's called a second mortgage, or even a blanket mortgage across several properties, where you've now added some additional value. You've got extra equity in the properties. That's a precursor to a future podcast where I'll go into how do you actually fund these purchases in much greater detail. But for now, let's go ahead and wrap this one up, guys. It's been just about a half hour. I hope you like the subject. I hope you like the tools, the tips, and the tricks that I gave you. And one final thought here is this: we do invest responsibly in our communities, all of us. And so when you do a strategy like I just described, where you buy and then remodel and then refinance later on to pull your money back out, remember your property's worth more money now, and you've been able to increase the rents. The point is this: is everybody wins. You win, the tenants win, the municipality wins, because you took something that was an eyesore and turned it into something prosperous. So kudos to you and congratulations. Hope you guys like this. Just remember, you can subscribe to the podcast. There's instructions on the screen. If you're already watching it, you already found the channel, just subscribe there. Okay. And obviously you'll see this. You'll see us on iTunes, iHeartTunes. The website, by the way, for My Investment Services is myinvestmentservices.com. Okay. And in there, you'll see a way to contact MIS. We call My Investment Services MIS. You can email support@myinvestmentservices.com. Okay. And you'll likely get a hold of Jody or Beverly. And by the way, the 800 number is 1-800-931-2605. Okay. And by the way, go check it out, because you can, on the My Investment Services website, if you click on members area and go in there, you can see you can sign up for this, what we call the silver level. And what that does, guys, is this is, of course, an investor over more than 3 decades, but more importantly, as a broker, I've trained close to 20,000 agents in classrooms how to work with us investors. And I've personally trained nearly 3,000 of them, literally one-on-one, how to work with investors in all 48 lower 48 states, in 3 Canadian provinces, British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec. Okay, so wherever you are, that includes, by the way, nearly 700, easily over 600, probably close to 700 cities and towns. There's probably not too many areas where we don't have somebody trained to work with you. Okay, so keep that in mind. You can sign up for that. I think they usually give new folks a month free. Basically, it's a subscription, but the cool thing is you don't just get access to other realtors. You get access to other investors across the U.S. and Canada. Get access to training. You get a weekly webinar there. You also get a community site where you can network online with people and see properties for sale. It's a closed network. It's not open to the public. It's just us. Okay. You can also get report on demand of who the cash buyers are in your area. So if you want to partner with somebody who's using cash, you can do that. Private lenders report shows you who's lending money privately in your area. There's all these things are on demand 24/7, right at your fingertips. So go ahead and log in, join up, and we'll see you on the next podcast. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. God bless you and your families, and we will see you next time. Okay, take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women. Be sure to go to myinvestmentservices.com to join our community and start building wealth today.